Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of E-AfterWork. I'm Aziz, and I'm joined today with Vishal from Hyperflex, who is going to tell us a lot about Elastic Partner and Elastic Consulting. But before doing so, before giving the stage to Vishal, let me just share with you the episodes that we have and the one that are coming. We had a great time last time with the Pulse, which is a product around the Elastic and the open source observability solution. It was an interesting topic. We've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes about how observability should be done around those clusters. We have an upcoming one in the 19th of November. This one is in French. We're going to talk also about observability. And before we had an interesting one about AI and sovereignty inference with Zambanova, who builds chips around that. We have some new interesting ones. We have platform engineering, November 27th. We have another one with Diana from Victoria Matrix. And I just had an event with the colleague of Vishal, which is the CPO of Hyperflex, and it went over time. That's why we are late. I'm going to remove this poster and ask you, Vishal, to tell us some words about who you are and why you are here today.
Mhm. Sure thing. Hello, Aziz. Good evening. I hope your audience is doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I have been watching your, episodes of podcast. They're really interesting. I watched the last one on sovereign inference. It was a very interesting conversation. I watched another one with Pulse. Again, a very good, a very informative podcast. So coming to me, I work with Hyperflex. I have been into Elastic ecosystem for almost 7 to 8 years now. I work with Elastic during my college days for my undergrad projects. Then I've worked with some enterprises. I've done consulting. I've also done implementation, and I've also done the product development around Elastic. So that's the broad overview. But yeah, let's get the conversation started.
Yeah, that's very cool. And as always, we're making this conversation go casual. We're talking about anything and everything and all of that stuff. And your position is today is you are a CTO of Hyperflex, which is a partner
Mhm,
of Elastic, who does
mhm.
consulting with Elastic. Can you explain all those words for us? What does a CTO is? What is a partner of Elastic? And where are your clients are? And how do you manage all of that stuff?
Yep, sure thing.
Yeah.
So coming first to the Elastic partnership. So if I were to explain it to the general audience, if you buy a car, right? So there's somebody, the car manufacturer like Audi or Mercedes, they're manufacturing the car. But then you have the service centers where you can go and get your regular checkups, implementation if you want anything very specific, very advanced, very niche. So that is the sort of partnership we have with Elastic. They build and ship the products, and we help their clients and customers to better utilize the Elastic stack, optimize them in terms of usage and cost. How can they secure their cluster and those sort of things? So we are the work partners with Elastic. Apart from that, so there are different tiers of partnership. We are resellers with Elastic. We help them sell Elastic to potentially new clients. We primarily work with their existing clients who are already Elastic users to help them implement and deploy their Elastic cluster. And then we are also the MSP. So we have the opportunity to work on the Elastic Stack, build something on it, on top of it, and then sell that as a package. Coming to this second part of question, CTO, so it refers to Chief Technology Officer. But to me, whole my journey, the position and title has not been a restrictive thing. I
Mhm.
think the role of a CTO is to basically drive the technological direction of the whole organization, where the business is heading, and how do we align our technological pieces. How I see it is, again, I'll take a car example. So you have this direction, right, and you have different sorts of pieces. We have transmission, we have engine. So the role of a CTO would be to, once we have the direction of our organization, how do I align all my engineers, all my parts, all my learnings, all my trainings, that it aligns with the business goal. So that would be the general role of a CTO.
That's a very impressive approach for the situation. I mean, the fact that you're not paying attention for the title and you're basically focusing on the mission. I mean, that's a noble thing, and congratulations on that. So you've talked about direction. What direction are you taking today? Where are you going? Where is your car leading you? If you exactly.
All right, all right. Right. I'll take a very umbrella, the umbrella under which we are trying to go. It's, I would say, vector databases in Gen AI. I guess every organization, this is the sort of fourth technological revolution that we are seeing. A lot of things are getting, moving towards Gen AI, and Elastic is very much aligned. Elastic has been playing on those field and those direction for a very long time, and currently, I would say we are pivoting and designing our customers to first, better utilize the Elastic Stack, and that does include using of Gen AI. How to implement a better, very good search, intelligent information retrievals. For e-commerce clients, we are working with financial clients how to use Gen AI in sort of their observability solutions so that they can implement their SARI practices in the best possible way. And the next direction would be to develop the products on top of Elastic. Elastic, and I think it's a very fantastic tool. It's a sort of, I would say, a Swiss knife. You can do multiple different things with it,
Mhm.
and there are so many aspects of each business, each industry that can be improved and optimized upon. So
Yeah,
that is the direction we are taking.
yeah.
How are we implementing it? So we have been developing a couple of products. So we have this query builder tool.
Mhm.
What it basically does is, so writing complex queries when you have millions of inventory is a
Yeah,
challenging
before
task to
before before
maintain.
we- before we get into the details of which side, I'm just trying to organize the thing here. So you mentioned that you have three hats. You have the hat of the
Mhm.
consulting. I think you are still doing consulting, correct? You used to consult
Yep,
clients,
yep.
and then you
Hmm.
have the hat of the sales, and then you have the hat of CTO.
Hmm.
Um, what is the main hat that you wear every day in those three when it comes to your roles? So that we can understand better how
Hmm.
the what are the challenges and how you manage those.
Yeah. So if I were to summarize my day today, I think it depends what hat am I going to wear, primarily for the day. So if I have a lot of prospecting calls, discovery calls with the client, I'll be primarily wearing the sales hat. But if I'm interacting with the team, I'm designing, what are the learnings that we need to do? How can we improve our engineers' capabilities? What are the consulting techniques that we need to implement within the team if I'm talking to the product team? So that's where I wear the CTO hat. And then if I'm talking to our existing clients, and then that's where I wear the consulting hat. I think it's not an easy question to answer. We have multiple different days and scenarios. There are days and weeks where I'm just wearing the one, let's say, sales hat or the CTO hat, and then the next week it's a complete switch.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking about Bhavish in the previous podcast, and we're talking about what you have mentioned, which is the fact that the Elastic Stack is like a Swiss knife that allows you
Mhm.
to do a lot of things in the same platform, in the same infrastructure, etc. But its use case would depend on the industry of the client. So for you, do you have like any specific industry that you work with, or is it something that you do not take into consideration when selecting a client or collaborating with the client?
Industry wise, I don't think we have any specific industry that I have not worked. I've been, like I mentioned, I've been into ecosystem for 7 years now. I
Mhm.
work with financial clients, hedge funds. I work with stock exchanges. I work with e-commerce. But I really am enjoying the work in the search space that Elastic is doing, the vector search, all the really advanced semantic searches and inference work that is coming up. So currently, I'm focusing on that part. I'm
Yeah,
working with e-commerce and retail clients.
I'm gonna ask you technical questions about that part, but before diving
Mhm.
into this, I'm gonna stay in the consulting side, and then later on again, I'm gonna go to the details of the search side. When
Mhm.
you're doing consulting, are you consulting? I think you're wearing two hats, engineer and architect at the same time, correct?
Yep. Mhm.
You're choosing where. How do you start that journey with the client, or how does the client start the journey? I think it is they request
Mhm.
your services, and then you go ahead and they provide them with the services. How does that go? What is the pipeline here?
Right.
Mm,
So I'll share two examples. There are consulting projects where I just have to go in as a very foundational engineer. You already have the tasks aligned, and then you just need to solve those problems. That's the basic engineering. But I'll tell one recent example. It's a big Fortune 500 e-commerce giant, and there I had to wear the consulting architecting hat because uh, the organization was really bloated. There were so many different teams that were working on information retrieval, on integrating AI. So there was really a big mess. So as an architect and as a consultant, I basically had to first spend a lot of time with different teams, understanding what their goals are, what has been done, and segregating everything. So that's where I was reading this interesting book, The McKinsey Way. It was written by one of the uh, McKinsey consultants. How in such situation, how to solve it? So he basically explained three triangle approach. That's how you meet in the middle ground. So
Hmm.
I think it depends on each project. If there's, the problem statement is not clear, if the end goal is not clear, I would work as a consultant or talk to different teams, and I would try to create a very clear and crisp goals. I think that's the best part of about consulting. How do you deliver it? If you have a very clear objective, once that has been designed, what is the pathway that needs to be taken? What are the objectives we are aiming, and what are the KPIs? What are the acceptance criteria? That's where I can go into the engineering mode, coding and developing the tools, testing them and deploying them. That's how the typical journey looks like.
Yeah, but before going into the details on how you help the clients solve their problems, um, how are you approaching the clients? Is it more of on a passive mode that the client waits until they have a problem, then they get in touch with you, or are you doing it proactively, saying or reaching out to the clients and saying we have expertise that would help you to diagnose problems that you don't even know about, that we can help you solve, or that we would be here so that we can know about your infrastructure, we can level up in what you have internally, so that when you face a problem, its resolution would be easier. Do you? Okay, so these are two questions, and the two questions are: do you go with that approach? And if not, do you think this is the right approach for the
Mhm.
client, from the client thing?
Right. So at Hyperflex, we basically have both the approaches working. We have a dedicated marketing team who would talk to potential clients, try to explain them our expertise, and then we can go on a discovery call and see if we have a good fit. There's any scope where we can help them optimize. But as of now, most of the consulting work that we are doing is the active one where client already has some issues. They are looking for some optimization, and then either via word of mouth or via directing, like they have seen somewhere us online in elastic events or somewhere, and that's where they would approach us, and then we can start the conversation there. So I guess we have a mix of both. Coming to what works the best, uh, again, it depends on the client. If you are
Hmm.
enterprise clients, there is a very specific process of procurement, the contract signing and everything. So for enterprise clients, it is, when you have such a big machine already moving, it is
Hmm.
essential to have some sort of reserve, where you already have done some part of process. And then whenever you need, you can just, get the experts come in and solve your problem. But I guess some of the SMBs where financial thing can be challenging, having something on a reserve always, that's where the passive comes in consulting, where they would see, okay, this is a problem that we are looking to solve. So last year we had opportunity to work with a research organization, and again,
Hmm.
their budget was very limited, so it was a very ad hoc call. They were looking for somebody who can help us, and then they came across Hyperflex online, and then they contacted us. I guess it depends on the client and their needs.
Yeah, and what do you think they value the most? If somebody, if for example, I'm an agency and they want to get into the space, and do you think that they value the presence online and then what you're doing, and how if you're sharing your knowledge online, etc., or do you think that's just an optional thing that may or may not have any impact on the consulting itself?
Uh, so, uh, so So basically, if the quality of consulting does not differ, how the way it is being approached,
Hmm.
but primarily, if it is better if the client already have, tried to solve it, and they have a clear vision. Okay, where do we want to go? And this is the sort of problem that we are looking to solve.
Hmm. Okay, so nowadays, when you mentioned the clients that you've worked with, so I believe you worked with middle enterprises, or until the S&P 500. What do you see is different? So I'm going to ask you a technical question this time.
Mhm.
In terms of the infrastructure thinking and the platform engineering thinking, what do you see different between an S&P 500 company and the small one? Or not small one, because I think it's a small one would not use consulting services, but let's just say medium company.
Mhm. Got it. And before I answer that question, I want to take an analogy, right? So
Yeah.
let's say you are on a highway. Again, coming from a motorhead, it's a highway example. So
Okay.
you have, okay, enterprise clients are like big trucks, trailers. They have 18, 20 tires, moving very, with huge momentum, right?
Hmm.
And then you have another motorcycle, and so the motorcycle is very, at a disadvantage when it comes to the size, right? Because the way the trailers are moving, they have huge momentum. But the motorcycles are very agile. They can change and shift directions anytime they want, whatever fits their strategy. Similarly, when you're working with a Fortune 500 client, changing, making, strategic changes, it's a very difficult process. It's not agile, but they already have a lot of different supporting resources, supporting processes, supporting departments, and everything that make that transition very smooth. But when it comes to working with a startup or sort of thing, any strategy change you discuss today, you can start implementing it tomorrow. But then
Yeah.
you also need to figure out the resources. So that's the my exam like my experience of working with a Fortune 500 enterprise, big enterprise client, and a smaller startups, SMB businesses.
And if I wanted to ask you about an estimation to get onboarded on a Fortune 500 company, from my perspective, just getting on board it takes time, and that time they pay for. And do you think that there's a bit of conflict of interest there for having a consulting, or, or just having an internal resource that has expertise? How do you see that from your perspective?
Right.
Mhm.
So we need to look how the idea of consultation started, right?
Mm.
Uh, let's say I'm a bottle seller, right?
Mhm.
I want my expertise, my people, my culture, my top to down approach, everything to be focused on selling the bottles. How can we make it better? How can I ship it best to the customer? How can I give the best experience to my customers? My problem should, my least problem should be, oh, I cannot get my logging operations to be, the up to the mark. Oh, I cannot get my products visible to the customer. So that's where the concept of consultation comes in. I don't want to have the in-house consultant. That's the first thing. Second thing, so let's say I solve this problem. Let's say I have observability. I don't have a observability setup. I get it done. What do I do with this whole team? I want my focus to be selling on the bottles. So whatever a business's core competency, core focus area is, they can focus on there, so that, like, the consultants can come and solve the other problems which do not very actively fit into the core, what the business is trying to sell. So I think it is okay, to have a smaller team in house, to maintain the run and the tools. But it is best if we get the best expertise of the town to come and help us set up, give us the proper setup of the best practices, how should it be implemented, and those sort of things.
Yeah, so I think this is also the mindset and the logic of the company that's hiring you.
Hmm.
When they hire an consultant, which is an external resource that they pay double the price for, what they're expecting is to bring the expertise of your previous experiences, of all the clients that you have seen, of similar technologies, etc. And they're also expecting you to teach the team that has, let's say, medium knowledge, your expertise, or if even if it's an expert team, they're always looking for what you have seen otherwise. Because let's assume that it's a big company, they have the best experts, but they're only seeing the problems that they are facing themselves. If they're facing new problems, they are bringing somebody either who faced the same problem with other in other experiences, so that they can come in and share their experience, and then they take advantage. So I think consulting, it has two two pillars to it. It's solving the problem and help solving the problem, and also being able to teach and mentor the people and transfer the knowledge that you have from your other experiences to them, basically. Do you agree with that point? I think you're on mute.
So, one thing I can add onto this. So, Hyperflex engineers, they have plethora of knowledge of, what are the challenges of working in finance industry. So we have, there's a lot of focus on security and PII sanitization. If you're working with healthcare, there's a lot of HIPAA compliance that you need to take care of. If you're working with a e-commerce retail giant, you need to make sure all the KPIs, you need to know what those KPIs mean. What is conversion ratio? What is zero results? What is LCV, right? So when you're growing in-house expertise, your engineer, may not have hands-on knowledge of what are the different challenges that may come up. So as Hyperflex engineers, when they go as expert consultant, they can talk on so many parameters and facets that an in-house expert may not be able to do. They may not have the hands-on knowledge of that. So I guess that's another the way to look how consultants can help you.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna begin asking you technical questions, and the first one that I
Mhm.
would like to ask you is, you've mentioned that you work with the Fortune 500 companies and the other smaller ones. Um, do you still see that people opt for on-premise solutions, or is everybody going for cloud-hosted solutions?
Mhm.
The,
Uh,
like your general perspective on that. Let's talk
I
big companies, very big ones.
okay. I'll talk on two perspectives. One is the engineering manager, the director, who is working on this,
Mhm.
hands-on, who is getting his hands dirty on solving the problems. They want to move to cloud. They do not want to spend endless hours, logging through files, through log files and maintaining a data center and all those sort of things. But as a business strategy, there are very specific use cases where the government compliance may not want you to move to cloud. There's always this issue. Okay, you need to maintain your own data center. You need to have your own data set. Recently, AWS was down, right?
Mhm.
And it is just something that cannot be predicted very well. So that's where, as a business strategy, there are some, not all, but at least I know that financial clients, they would want at least some part of data to be there in their hands-on, right, in their own data center, where everything is remains within there. They have the full control. But the people who are working, and if they may not resonate with what exactly it means for the business implications, they want to move to cloud. Cloud is of course easier to do things, to have new features ASAP. So like these are the two perspectives on cloud versus on-prem.
And which one do you prefer in your case? Or
Right.
which one
uh,
which one challenges you the best, the most?
I think the on-prem one is the most challenging one because when you're working with any of the cloud providers, right? Google, Amazon, Microsoft, anything that is happening in the any new tool is coming up, any new service is coming up, any new best practices there, it is automatically there. I can just start using it. But when it's on-prem, there will be a whole process like okay, these are the sort of new load balancers. Just give an example that
Mhm.
we can use. Okay, these are the new SSDs. Okay, the old hard drives are not fast enough. Let's get the new one. So it will be a whole process and everything. It will take some. So innovation takes some time. Second, the implementation part also gets challenging sometimes. Getting proper resources, getting approval. There was this one client where we had to, anytime we needed new racks, if there was a certain process that we need to follow, we need to fill up a form, send to the the proper department. But when they move to AWS, the process become very easier, right? You can just submit your ticket and get it procured very easily. And the final, the factor that decides this is the cost. Apart from the security and data ownership, is the cost. Like how do you manage the cost on on-prem when you already have so much already spent. Have already spent your capital expenditure on getting all of this set up and then moving to cloud. So it's a combination of where engineering and business decision makers can meet to best optimize the outcomes.
And do you also see, say, the hybrid solutions where you have, let's say, a company that has compliance issues and compliance constraints, and they need to
Mhm.
have some data on premise, and the rest, or the things that needs innovation, they put it on the cloud, and then they have like some cluster search between the two, or replication, or whatever. Do you see those hybrid setups big companies, and I'm asking you this because from a perspective of data or sovereignty over data, if you have your data being accessible with even with the cross cluster search, it's still something that is reachable. So do you see that those kind of implementation? And if yes, why do they go for it?
Mhm.
Mm.
I guess, if I were to talk 5 years back, there would be, hybrid. There would be some clients, one in, I would say 10, where they only have on-prem solutions. But now the situation is everybody, all those who have these compliance reasons to maintain their own data, they already have some cloud presence. They already have moved to hybrid again because they want to use the best of both worlds. Coming to the problem that you mentioned, I guess so there are multiple ways, how can we implement this. So one of the clients, it was a financial client, and we were working on their fraud detection system. So they had
Mhm.
two clusters. The on-prem cluster only stored the data and write the data. Anything that has to be written or changed, that was only done on the on-prem cloud. And on the hybrid, the on the on-prem system and on the cloud system, there were only dashboards. The RBAC was so granular that only very few specific information would go out. So you see that, with this, they basically solved the problems. They met their compliance requirements. Data could only be written and was maintained on their own data center. But for the ease of use, when they had to send dashboards and reports and some of the alerts to some of the vendors and the team outside, they had a cloud setup where they could access, but the access was very limited. Only the information that was allowed and that was needed by them, only that was there. So that's how we can play around with the RBAC.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting way of looking at it. So if you want to stay up to date with innovation and use the last features, then you always have them on cloud. Let's say, for example, Kibana feature and etc. But if you want to use them on data and if the compatibility is there, you can always have your data locally and you can do cross cluster with granular RBAC on the data that you want to use it on, and you can leverage this combination to go ahead and stay up to the innovation thing. Uh, yeah, we're talking about innovation. I also noticed this with anything that is Gen AI and RAG related. So the startups and small companies, they can easily catch up to this. But if you're talking about a big enterprise, the first question that would come into mind is the security. How do I secure that the agent is only accessing the data that I want to access, and how I make sure that there are guardrails, etc., etc. How do you see the Gen AI adoption with your clients? Um,
Mhm.
are they adopting it as it is? Are they second guessing or second thinking it? What is how do they approach that?
Right. So there are two layers to it. First
Mhm.
one, are they are willing to it? Yes. Everybody is hands on. They want to get the best AI tool as soon as possible because there are very visible benefits to it. But the second thing, is making sure that it is safe, secure, and it does not, do any negative impact in the long run. That is something that is still in question. Everything that goes into an enterprise system has to be weighted, checked, multiple layers. This is something very new. Gen AI is still evolving, I would say. We are still, in the, I would say, the basic infrastructure setup of it. We have models that are being developed. We are getting, there are some issues, some other news that comes up every now and then. So the second layer of, making sure that it is safe, stable, and secure is still in questions. There are many ways you can host your own models. You can start, set up something on your locally. I have two very good examples for this.
Mhm.
So one of the tools that Hyperflex has worked on is a Splunk to Elastic migration, right?
Okay.
And then we were using some of the LLMs to make sure, writing the some of the
Before
automation of
going before going to that, do you see a lot of people migrating from Splunk to Elastic? Is that a trend that you see around there?
uh,
It's a tricky
I would
question.
Uh, I'm not sure how to put that, but the thing is that we are working on some of the clients who are migrating to Splunk to Elastic. I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
let
Mhm.
me rephrase the question. Do you see that Elastic today has enough tools, enough maturity to replace Splunk? Let's put it that way.
Okay.
From your
Uh,
perspective and
mhm.
experience with both
Right.
solutions.
Mhm. So, as far as the features and the use case go, yes, absolutely. Everything that you can do in a Splunk, you can do it in a better way with Elastic. But there are multiple, ways to look at it, right? Splunk, Cisco acquired Splunk for like 29 billion. They also acquired App Dynamics. They are also a very big player. I would say the biggest player in networking equipment and all those sellers. So there's this whole ecosystem, right? So the when let's say I'm a client, I'm a customer, and it is a easier decision for me to stay with Splunk when I have the same company and vendor providing all layers of my needs, right? So I think it's a business decision, but feature wise, yes, I would say Elastic is much more advanced,
So
at
basically,
least.
you're saying that it's if you get vendor locked, even if the budget goes out of hands, you should stay. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying you need to look at your use cases. There are so many cool features with Elastic that you can never use with Splunk at this point. They have introduced so many new things. If you look, Elastic is a very agile company. They release minor updates every quarter. They have major updates, version upgrades every few now and then. So you have really good features, performance features, and use case features as well coming very frequently. So you need to make sure that you don't run out of the race of the feature. Innovation is really important.
Yeah, and now we can get back to the example that you were giving. Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. So we had this, we have developed this in-house tool, Splunk to Elastic migration. It was using open source tool.
Hmm.
And then the first request, all the clients that we talk to, again, Splunk is a very enterprise tool, only the big enterprises are primarily using it. And everybody, the first question they wanted to ask was, is my data going outside? I don't care what data is going outside. It may be irrelevant, but I do not want it to go outside my network. So that's where we had to build, how can we create an air gap version of it for such clients.
Okay.
There was another e-commerce client that we worked with. They had a very good use case in their uh, retail space, right?
Hmm.
We built a demo for them. Overnight we showcased it to them. Very impressive. Everybody was sure, okay, this is going to help us achieve our KPIs almost like 50% faster. But
Hmm.
again, they were very eager to get it, into their system. But the only question was, how safe it is. We need to really make sure. So the demo ideation part, architecting part, and implementation part was just 3 months. But just deciding where do we use it, making sure all the checks and balances are met. It took almost 5 or 6 months, almost double the time of implementation. So these are the two things that enterprise will always have to look at. They have sensitive data. They have this responsibility, right? Our PIIs, our financial data are with these companies. They need to make sure that it is safe, secure, it does not go in wrong hands, and there's no misuse of it. So they have a huge responsibility as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also business dependent. So one business would be different than another one. If you're dealing with financial data, it's different than dealing with commercial data. It's different than dealing with just casual search cases. Uh,
Mhm.
you've mentioned that you worked on both sides, so observability and search, with small preference for search and vector search. If I ask you to tell me, so I believe that each one of those cases you're optimizing for something. And my perspective is, for observability, you are optimizing for accuracy. You care less
Mhm.
about time. For search, you're optimizing for both time and accuracy. And for security, how? So tell me your version of this. Let's make it about you, not about me.
Okay. Coming to observability, the things that there are very few parameters that we want to solve. The first is reducing the noise. You know, I've
Mhm.
seen clients who want to get observability tools, and they
Define the
would.
noise. Define the noise before
Yep,
we get into it.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. Getting there. So let's say you have 10 data sources, and you
Mhm.
are generating alert on all of them. You are getting 100 alerts each day, but you are only responding and working to 10 of them. You are ignoring the 90. Oh, it's not important, and those sort of things. This is a
Mhm.
very common practice in big enterprises. So that's the noise. You are getting so much data which is not really insightful. You are maintaining, collecting the data, doing data engineering and storing it, but it may not be insightful. It may not be used in your alerts. So that's the sort of noise that we should cut down. As an observability expert, when we talk to our clients, we want to make sure that you are getting the best monitoring and observability solution, but we also need to look at cost. You cannot just ingest anything and everything and generate alerts on everything. Your teams, your SRE teams will be overloaded, and
There will be
that's where.
alert fatigue. So basically, the symptom is
Mhm.
alert fatigue, and then the root cause is the noise that you have in your data.
Yep, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. You put that right.
yeah.
So that's the observability part. The search
And how,
part.
how do you
Mhm.
approach that before going to the second bar? How do you approach
Right.
that this kind
Mhm.
of situation? And I believe the tricky thing here is you gotta talk with the producers of data to tell them that what you're
Mhm.
producing is trash, and you gotta make an effort. So, okay, so let me ask you this in another way. Do you think that it's the responsibility of the producer of the data to give you a clean one, or do you think it's the responsibility of the observability staff or the teams to make the best out of the data that you're extracting by parsing it and transforming it? Where do you stand on that debate?
Mhm. I first want to put myself in the shoes of engineer who is producing the data,
Yeah.
right? My that's where I would want. I know where can my solution break, and I would want to generate data on all of them, right? That's the shoes thought process of an engineer. The
Mhm.
SRE or observability who are actually using this data, over the time they need to do the analysis, right? What is actually useful, what is helping them write the RCS, what is helping them, to reduce the the time to detect and respond to the issue. So over the time, they both can capture their analytics, their insights, and then meet somewhere in the middle ground. When I'm developing any tool, I don't know, right? What are the point of failures? Where can it fail? And then there are points which I know, okay, this is a fragile point. It may break here. If the load increases, this is a possible, this is a weak link of my solution. So I would want to generate the data. But as an observability engineer, I need to, do the analysis, talk to the producer team, and meet somewhere in the middle ground.
So basically, you're supposing that the person that generates the data should know what what they're expecting and what they're dealing with before sending you anything. It should not be
Mhm.
mechanical. It should not be just this is the procedures in the organization. You need to send this data because everyone else does it. You are basically approaching it from the other way around and saying, here is the power of the solution. It allows you to diagnose the problem and get the solution that you need. But in order for you to take advantage of this, you need to know what you're looking at, what you're doing, so that we can know the problems that you are looking for and expecting. Is that how you how you would put it otherwise?
Yep, and that is like a more accurate way of putting it. Taking active approach to what data are you producing, to be mindful of it.
Yeah. And how do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line between the scope of uh, application people and the SRE people? Where do you
Mhm.
draw? I, and actually before that, I want to know your version of SRE job and platform engineer job. How do you see these two jobs and what is the definition?
Mhm.
How do you
SRE
and
era.
where do you consider yourself between the two?
Right. I have my good share of time jumping between the data producers, platform teams, and the SRE team. Right. So
Okay.
coming to the SRE job, let's first talk about the platform teams. Right.
Mm,
So like I mentioned, there are multiple different moving parts in an organization. Platform team is something, a team that has developed some sort of solution. Let's not put it in a box.
mm,
So we have this, let's say at Hyperflex, we have this team who works in sales. So we create some sort of solution to them, which can create automatic decks. We can send cold emails. So that would be a platform. It is hosted somewhere. Everything, I would say a unit of a business, right, which owns and deploys, owns the infrastructure solution and outcomes, that I would call as a platform team, right? And then coming to the SRE, as it says, site reliability engineering. The core principle of it is to make sure that we have good visibility, we have good, we can make sure that the platform is running very smoothly. Platform teams can be very specific to some platforms, but SRE and in general as an engineering principle, it is independent of system and tools. There are the concepts of SRE, which are very foundational, which are tool independent or platform independent. That's where that's my practical on ground definition of the two teams.
so basically, you're saying that the platform engineer is much larger and it includes the development team, the DevOps, and all the other engineers. But the SRE are basically DevOps 2.0, or they are on the lower level, meaning that they make this system stay up, but they don't care about what the system does. Is that what you're saying?
I would say more than lower, I would say they are more foundational. They stay more once their platform is up and running. The
Yeah.
SRE team is the one that remains more close to the actual mechanics, how the things are moving and what data is going where, what the implication it can have. Whereas the platform team is more outcome driven. They receive a very specific use case and this problem solution that they need to solve.
Okay. And who between the two uses the observability, or do you, I think both, but how do they use it? Let's put it that way. What is the
Yeah.
difference? How does a platform engineer use observability, and how does an SRE uses observability?
Mhm. Mhm. So platform engineering team would be constantly working on their solution, how to make it better, right?
Mhm.
How can we optimize it better? What are the fragile points of my platform and how can I fix them? So the part that with observability that they are working on is where is it failing? What are the repeating culprits? What is taking my system down? I'll analyze those data to make my system more robust. Whereas the SRE team, their job is, primarily comes either to make sure that in the first place the system is always up and running. So they want to analyze all sorts of data. They analyze info logs, warn logs, error logs, right, network logs, to make sure what can be, the breaking point and how can we fix them beforehand. And then once the system, if the case arises that the system is broken, there's some downtime going, to try to analyze what could be the root cause and how to fix it. So these are the two, different ways that two different teams sees the observability.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So if I'm, for example, an executive, and I'm trying to make you justify the budget that I'm allocating for your project, or the investment that I'm making on you, would you, what are the KPIs that you would put in place to prove to me that an observability platform is worth having in my organization? Would you approach this for me
Mhm.
as an executive who does not know much about what you're doing?
The first thing I can show is, when Facebook went down,
Yeah.
the Forbes ranking of Mark Zuckerberg slid down, right? Because the Meta shares were in a free fall. So that would be the first starting point. I think that should be good enough. But yeah, coming to the business aspect of it, I think the uptime and the customer experience are the two most important things that I would explain to a business executive.
Okay.
Customer experience is something that defines the whole organization. If the you can be doing multiple things, and if the customer experience is not good, they would not come back basically. There is
Mhm.
always this word hanging that somebody can do it in a better way, and then we are not doing good enough for our customers. So customer experience, if you are facing downtime, if your solution is frequently for not accessible, there are lags in your system may give inaccurate information. There is always a latency in the queries and requests. So these are the parameters I would show. I'll start there, and then depending on the domain, so let's say if it's a financial client, I would talk about the what sort of visibility you need to have in case something goes down. So if there's a, let's say, a ransomware attack, you need to have the whole visibility. Okay, where did it originate, where did it go, what are the data points it had access to, so that you can cover those loopholes. If I'm talking to a healthcare client, I would want to work on good analytics. You need to make sure that you have all your data in place and secure. If you are able to generate the analytics, that's where observability solution can help you monitoring your databases. What are the third party integrations you have, because a lot of healthcare clients, they have third party integrations. So you need to make sure who is accessing your data, what is the sort of latency, what are the traces and transaction durations, so all those things. So based on the clients, I'll start with the customer experience, downtime, all those things, and then based on the industry they are in, I would talk on the specifics. How can we observability solution is a must.
So basically, you're saying that in application should have an APM on it. Is that what you're saying? It's no longer enough to have just logs and metrics. You need to have the thing. You need to have the APM to have an end-to-end observability for application. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Yes, absolutely. APM is a must. I say observability is built on three pillars: logs, matrices, and APM. APM is again very important. Once you have those, you can very easily connect the dots. You have logs, you have your matrices, how your hardware is performing, and then you have the symptoms from your software, and then you know how the customer experience, the end user experiences, and then you can connect the three dots to really identify your problems. So I think APM is a must.
So how do you start? Let me ask you from an analyst or a user perspective. How do I approach EPM? Where do I start? Let's say I have a problem with my application that is reported by someone else. Let's assume that we don't have any synthetic monitoring to begin with.
Mhm.
Is this some client reported the problem? Where do I start if I have an
Right.
observed solution? Or
Mhm.
how do, as an application, implement something that would help me solve those kind of problems?
Right. So let's say you have a third-party connection, to your database, or your application is pulling data from somewhere. You have a payment gateway, and then your customers are constantly reporting, oh, the payment page is not loading good enough, or the experience is not good. Your customer feedback is always 5 on 10 on the customer experience, and then you would always be looking at your logs and metrics, right? Oh, my hardware is performing well, I don't have any error logs. Where the problem could be, I don't have any warn logs. So that's where APM would come into picture. Okay, this is not your internal problem, rather it's an external problem. APM can really help that. This is one of the examples. Apart from that, again, this is a second level question that I would think. The more foundational question or use case of APM is, it can help you identify the problems which you did not, which are not getting reported on a day-to-day basis as a customer. If there's a slight difference, slightly, delay in loading of pages or something like that, if I refresh the page, it gets solved, I may not even report it, right? But the problem is there. So APM can actually capture those details at a trace level, and then make that issue visible to you, so you can solve actually those issues even before it becomes a problem. A problem starts small, it goes big, but you have those visibility even before it gets reported.
Yeah, but when we talk about EPM, we're basically talking about every transaction that you have in your application should be recorded. How does an application that is as big as an application that is facing the public internet deal with that? I mean, it's massive data. It's everyone is doing thousands of operations every day. There's thousands of logs. How do you deal with that with an APM? So yeah, you can elaborate
Yeah,
that.
like so implementing just the APM, the technical aspect of it, I would say it's very basic. You get your agent, you embed that into your code or backend, or your customer applications, anything that you want. The main challenge comes, with such a big scale, is identifying and reducing the noises, right? That we discussed earlier. When you have so much data coming in, you need to make sure what are the transactions that are really important to me that I need to monitor. And then with Elastic, there are many different ways of implementing it. You have fleet server where you can, very well organize and centrally control your agents. You can have, a very good visibility and of a network map, what sort of transactions are going, how many databases are being connected, what are the different services that are connected, what sort of users I'm getting, where am I getting these users for, whether I'm getting a Mac user, Apple user, Samsung user, what sort of ways they are using to connect to me, right? How are they approaching me? So you get an added layer of visibility with your customer, apart from your backend. So and then coming to managing the data, once we have this insights, right? Okay, what are the transactions that are important, what are the transactions that are causing issues? That's where we can focus, we can create a sort of tiger focus where we just focus on them, solving on them. So you can really narrow down your focus area, reducing the noise which are not really impactful, just focus on what is impactful.
Yeah, so you've touched upon a very important topic, which is the value of data, which
Mhm.
is can be defined or is impacted by two parameters, which is the age of the data and how it is extracted and from where it is extracted. The data, even
Mhm.
if it's extracted and it's valuable at a time, I mean, after a certain time, it becomes less valuable. We can take an example of debugging something. If
Mhm.
if I wanted to debug a problem in 1 week, then the value of the data is high. but starting after 1 month, this data is no longer important for me, and I need to get rid of it. Um, that's a good thing. In the examples that or the clients that you worked with, what's their approach to APM? How, like their management of the life cycle of their APM? Do you see any trend? Do you see any logic behind how much they retain the data and those kind of things, or it's just something that you test and then you see you ameliorate over time?
Right. One trend that is for sure is the data volume is growing huge, right? There's exponential growth in data
That's
volume.
interesting. I've seen that it grows 20% every year.
Yes,
As in
absolutely. Yeah, right. So with and along with that data, you really have to, the fraudulent cases, the cyber fraud are also growing, right? So when you want to track all of this, you really need to have the good visibility of the full stack observability. That is one of the trend that we are seeing. Uh, Executives and businesses are really investing in cybersecurity, or I would say just security in general. APM is part of it. How do we capture those, how do we capture the sort of patterns and everything. There's a lot of investments going on around Gen AI, intelligent SRE, intelligent monitoring solutions, where anything that is going off based on the historical data that can be tracked easily. uh, Apart from that, there's a very common trend that I'm seeing is trying to have a smart agent for everything. The agentic AI is really, on the boom, I would say. And then we have seen agentic, analytics for the APM and logs and traces, like AI observability sort of tool. A lot of tool suits are, coming up with this feature.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I recently had a not recently, it's been a couple of months. The talk about the importance of observability for Gen AI applications, and
Mhm.
I touched upon two main things and or two main parameters or two main aspects of the situation, which is the possibility to debug and get to the root causes, and the second thing is that if you observe your application, you get something to work with in the future in terms of evals and the data, and you would know how to use your GenAI application. Because at the end of the day, if you have a GenAI application that's like um, RAG use case, or let's take um, a very naive RAG system. It's basically you're getting the data, you're asking a question to the database, and you're taking the result. In order for you to uh, ameliorate your system or to enhance it and to ameliorate the recall from your database and the the prompt that you're sending to the LLM, etc., you need to have the data. You need to study how people are interacting with the system. And in order for you to study with this, you need to record all the interactions. You need to record the query that you sent to the database, how much time it takes to get back to you. I mean, the number of tokens. And if you are using an external system, you also need to record the price that it's costing you, the number of tokens, etc. So they can be right. So in addition to the regular or legacy or the way the APM is intended for, which is debugging and getting the root causes and seeing the performance of application, there is also this need that to get the feedback or to build the evals around your application. Do you agree with me on that, or I'm just hallucinating here like an LM?
No, you are absolutely right. And, I think we can relate it to a trend that, a lot of new users are actually agents. So
Yeah.
now APMs are even more important, right? Earlier, you used to have users, who are working as your customer, but now you have agents who are buying from your portal, as a proper user. And this is not a human. Human has thrown in some random query, and then an agent is doing, buying and researching and using your application. So that's why your user is now an agent. So again, like APM is now more important to check, how are they interacting with your systems, what are the pathways they are taking, their whole journey. So again, yeah, you are absolutely right there.
And let's stick with the agent thing here. According to your experience, how do you see the management of authorizations in agent case? Do you see it more like it inherits from the user. It takes the same roles and the same thing from the user and go, or does it have like large scope and it's up to it to, do you trust the agent or you guard right? Let's put it that way.
I would say we are in this whole AI journey is very initial in its days to come to a conclusive solution to it.
Mm,
There are a lot of new developments going on. Personally, I think there would always, at this point, we always need guardrails to monitor our agents.
mm,
I would, I've seen where people are hesitant to give their, personal authorization or credentials to an agent because there's still a lot of unknowns, how they are working and what would be the evaluation, what would be their reasoning. So I think at this point, at least we need guardrails, but we still have a long way to go before we come to a conclusive. And we can, in general, trust the AI agents 100% to give them a personal identity and authority.
yeah, and how do you see platform engineering of those agents? How do you,
Mhm.
what is the, so what is the main component in developing them? Is it the database? Is it the infrastructure? How do you see that?
I think it's a combination of all, the database, the infrastructure, the whole platform, how the evaluation is going on. And also, I think there are cases where we also need to look into the network usage. Where are the, what are the possible solutions that were being considered? So I think it's a combination of all. And that's why, when we talk about guardrails, we need to make sure that we are monitoring, at least the primary things of network data usage, databases, and all those sort of things.
That- That's cool. I'm gonna get back to what you mentioned at the beginning, which is your experience in the e-commerce.
Mhm,
Um, how are you leveraging the vector search in your e-commerce consulting
mhm.
experience? How do you leverage
Right.
it?
Mhm. With e-commerce, there's so much scope of Gen AI. Like, there are so many stages, starting from the product procurement to description, the information retrieval, the pre-sales and the post-sales support, that there are multiple scopes.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the current focus is on Gen AI, basically AI-based salesperson, right, who can very well fetch you the right products based on your description. You give a sort of vague description and then it can fetch and using the context, the context of your user history and your preferences. Based on your context, it can fetch the right data set. So let's say I'm a regular user of Amazon and they have my brand preferences. What sort of shoes do I prefer? What sort of sneakers? What colors do I like? What
Hmm.
brands I like? What brands I do not like? Whether I like soft foam or aerogel, those sort of, based on those contexts. And when I add new context to it, okay, I'm buying shoes for, let's say, the new marathon runner or experienced marathon runner, bringing all those together and then giving the right results. So this is the primary focus in the e-commerce space. That is the right information retrieval and the right product visibility.
Yeah. So
But then, Mhm, mhm,
give me a technical example here. How are you writing your queries?
mhm. So basically, there's an AI layer. So our data first, we need to get the semantic text, right? The
Mhm.
semantic and vectors. So
So what
there's
is the
a
difference
huge.
between
Mhm.
semantic and vector? Let's start with this.
Okay, okay. So your
I
traditional.
hope you don't mind that I'm cutting off every time, so just so you can have a better understanding.
I think you are asking the right questions and they are very interesting. So they are really making me pick the thoughts from my back of my brain.
Yeah,
It's not going to be easy.
that's
So
my objective today.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So the traditional databases with basically all the retailers has been a plain text. I want to say a bottle, fetch me a bottle, and then they will bring a bottle to me. In my result sets. But let's say I say, I want a storage container for water, almost 800 ml, that I can take with gym, and then I can also take it to work.
Mhm,
Now, a traditional, a text-based data storage would not be able to fetch it for me, right? Because I've none of the keywords match to the actual product description.
mhm,
But when I have a vector, so basically what vectors are, imagine in a 3D plane, I have this, So imagine a colony or a town. We have this maps. Okay, this is where this person lives. Take the first right and first left, and then you have this church there, and then you have this let's say a grocery store there. Similarly, in vector database, when we create vectors, so basically we use ML models to create vectors, and these are positions in a three-dimensional space. There can be multiple dimensional. For the simplicity, let's take three-dimensional. Okay, so the query that the user is asking, it sits at this position, but the nearest one, the product that we have is like 2 units from here, similar to what we have in a map. From my house, the nearest grocery store is 2 units of distance. So that's where we sort of create the similarity based on the distance. So this is the how the vector databases work. Elastic, you might have seen, it's the most downloaded vector database as of now. It's
Yeah.
featured on the website. Yeah. So a lot of shifting has been going there because now the queries are not. People want intelligent search system. I can just throw in my thoughts, my raw thoughts, and I want the product which is most similar to my query, irrespective of how I'm putting it. I don't want my customers to be restricted to put it, okay, I need to put my search a certain way and I need to go to so many portals to, just to find the right, find the right product. So
Mhm.
that's where it starts. And then coming, there are many new search techniques. There is RRF. Elastic recently came up with bbq, bit binary quantization, which is like super fast version of vector searches. It's much faster, so your recall and precision scores are well
Listening.
optimized.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
And do you see people go for those optimizations, or they are hesitant when it comes to it? And if you can give us like numbers in terms of like
Mhm.
the precision thing and the adoption of like BBQ and those.
Okay. All right.
The, and before going to that, I actually had a question at the back of my mind, which is, according to your experience today, do you see people go more for hybrid or 100% Victor search?
Hybrid is the best. Right.
Okay.
And yeah, because we do not know what the users, let's say somebody may come up and they have a very specific, use case. Okay, this is what I want. And let's say somebody's searching for SKU, every retail, the whole inventory, they have a unique identifier code. And if somebody's looking for that, we want to give only that product. We don't want the nearest product because they have a very specific use case that what they're looking for. So, hybrid is the best, it manages the best of both worlds. Hybrid, I guess they has the performance and the performance on the KPIs, business KPIs that are being solved. It has a very good use case there. Uh, and then coming to the second part of the question, uh, so let's take an example, right? You are looking for a medicine, you want it to be 100% accurate, right? So that's where, and then you, let's say on another site, you are doing an image search. You see a very good phone case, and you want the same. You don't know how to describe it. You just click a picture and then search it. So clients, which are serving to mass people, the D2C places,
Mhm.
there the BBQ has a very good use case. It's much faster. You have the very good balance of recall and precision, but there will always be some use cases. I think the niche would be very small, where BBQ may not be, welcome, because
Mhm.
you have a trade-off there on some of the scores.
Yeah, that's interesting. But for me, anything you add, it's another layer of complexity that you add. So if I take a hybrid search that
Mhm.
has the lexical part, the vector part, and the vector part has the model part, and then I have the BBQ. Now,
Mhm.
if I want to optimize my query, where do I start? Should I change the model? Should I take off the BBQ? Should I look at my vector query, or should I change my lexical query? I mean, going from one parameter, if I was losing the lexical one, to 4 parameters, that's a huge deal. How do you go about those kind of scenarios or those kind of problems?
To all the customers facing this issue, Hyperflex is here. We are here to help us. Reach out to us.
Go ahead, give us your elevator pitch.
But yeah, but coming to the point, I guess it is not as easy. I think the post sales part that I mentioned, right, is
Mhm.
the analytics part. with analytics, when we were working with any of the e-commerce clients, we look at the whole customer journey, the time they log into your page to the time it gets closed. What are the products that they are seeing? What are the products they clicked on? What are the products they are reading description? How many images did they open? How much time they spent on each of the product? How this helps us is, we have a very good narrowed vision of what all the four parameters is not working. So let's say I have 10% of users who have zero click rate. They are coming, they are searching, they are not viewing any products, and then they are leaving.
Hmm.
How it materializes to business is that our search is just not performing well. They are looking for something very specific, and let's say it could be a probably they're looking for 100% very specific things that none of the 100 15 20 products I suggested is not working. Vector search may be able to capture a certain distance, and it's not there. So I would first start with the keyword search. Okay, is there some of the filters that I missed, right? Any of the specific conditions was there that I missed. um, if I were to seeing that, I have a lot of customers, they are viewing the product, but they are not actually buying anything. That's where, my circle of search increases. Now I'm looking into my vector search circle, I'm suggesting them certain things from certain distance, but customer is not interested in that. So my vector search may not be performing. uh, BBQ, there's a this facet of the factor of latency and everything, right? Uh, how much my faster my pages are loading, how much faster my recommendations are working, how my cross-selling services are putting the products up into the customer's visibility. So that's where the third layer of my circles of the looking into it comes into picture. That's where I can start looking into BBQ. So once that's where the APM and all this sort of data are really interesting, important. They help us narrow down the problem. I could just take a blind shot. Okay, my vector search is not working. Okay, my keyword search is not working. But when I have this assistant of the click analytics data, I can very well narrow down, okay, which is not working. Then I can come to the optimization. Okay, my product description is not good enough. Okay, I can update my product description. My product images are not good enough. I can update that once I have those insight.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've been talking for a long time. I'm gonna ask you a last technical question, and then we can wrap it up. Uh,
Uh,
when do you start with a vector search? You need to choose an embedding model, and the thing
mhm,
is, you cannot change that model along the way because if you change it, you need to reindex everything because you change the. How do you choose that model?
mhm. I think that's a really interesting question. Um, there are so many open source models available. You can decide, you want to train something in house. There's always this question. Coming to how do you select? uh, is your user just single language based, or you have users from you have global users and you want to have this vector in different languages, your Portuguese, your Italian, you have English, and all those different languages. So
Hmm.
that can be a deciding factor of which model would you want to use. There are models which are very specific to English, there are models which are very specific to certain languages, then there are generally trained models. Then you also need to look at your data. Is your data just plain description of daily household uses, or you are selling very specific parts? For example, we have one client who sells parts to data centers, right? They sell to AWS, they sell to Azure, they sell to GCP. So they have very specific parts. Okay, what cooling a cooling fan would it be? What cooling liquid would it be? And what sort of cables would that be? The rack space, hard drives, and everything. So now you have a very specific use case and you want if it's a sort of B2B business, so you may need to train your own model. You take something, based online, and then you start training it on your data, supervising it. So I
Yes.
think the
Yeah.
first factor to decide it. Mhm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah. So the first factor would be to understanding your data, your use case, and your
Mhm.
customers. And then based on that, you can have like trade-offs with multiple different models, maybe do some POCs, generate some numbers, and then, that's where you can start.
Yeah, so basically you're saying start with the model and test it and then enhance it or fine tune it or change it if need be. But you need to start with something in development. And before going to production, your selection should be unique and you need to make a very bold decision because you cannot change it along the way, or you can't change it, but the cost is so high of changing it.
Yes. Yeah. So take into consideration everything, the model, the customers, the sort of data you have, and that's when, and also generate some analytics around it, do some POCs, and then decide your model.
Yeah, that's good. I think we had a good round today. We've been talking for 70 minutes, and I'm not gonna do the same thing we did with Bhavesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta take my revenge with him. I'm gonna invite him for the next session. But I think yeah, we had a good one. Do you have anything you wanna say or tell us that we did not cover, or if you wanna promote Hyperflex also, feel free.
I think I've already done enough, and but yeah, I mean, the whenever you are making any decisions, we are, I think, as a general in AI race, AI foundation, we are still very early. There's a lot more things to be done. I think we are still at the foundational level. If I were to compare it to, let's say, the internet revolution, there were a time where, just the telecom companies were getting formed, the basic things were getting formed. People were still trying to understand. And then over the next 2 decades, many different tools and big companies were built on top of that. So I think we are still in the foundational layer. We are still setting up the infrastructure. A lot more innovation is coming up. We have like next 2 3 decades in all sorts of different industries we have coming up. But yeah, I mean, we need to make sure that when we have a responsibility, we have customer data, be it healthcare, legal, or personal information. We need to make sure that you have taken good care of it. Go ahead, play around with AI, but yeah, take into consideration the different possible outcomes as well. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this conversation. I really had to collect my thoughts and put them and articulate them. Very interesting questions.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the joining podcast? And what is your critiques about my podcast? Do you have any ways I can advance it? I can make
Uh,
it better.
no, I think this is already going very good, very interesting. All the questions were really on point. I think anybody who is in this space will find your questions very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Vishal, for being here today and answering all our questions and doing this casually with no script and just enjoying the talk here. And I hope you had a good time as I had myself.
Yes, I had a very good time, and it's always interesting to talk to you. I don't need a script to talk to you.
Yeah, you could just message me and we can do it. Yeah,
All
thank you
right.
very much, everyone, and till the next time, till the next week.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Thank you
bye.
all. Bye bye.